Last week, Wall Street favorite Gina Raimondo. She was the frontrunner to head the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, Joe Biden is expected to nominate California Attorney General Xavier Becerra. He's a Medicare for All supporter who actually pushed Obama to lower the price of prescription drugs.
DC Bureau Chief of the Intercept, Ryan Grimm, joins us now to discuss Biden's nominee here. Great to see you, Ryan.
Good to see you, Ryan.
Good to see you.
All right, what'd you make of this one?
I mean, this is a big dodged bullet for progressives. The fact that Gina Raimondo got as close as she did to being named HHS secretary is rather disturbing, given just simply given her record as Rhode Island governor. Rhode Island has the worst handling of COVID in New England and one of the worst outbreaks all across the entire country, which is saying something, given that you're kind of starting with an advantage, given the fact that you're in New England, a place where it hasn't spread like it has in the rest of the country. But also, while governors around the country are expanding Medicaid, Raimondo has spent her governorship attacking Medicaid, trying to cut it, which has led to hospital closures, nursing home closures, hospital sales. Her austerity push during this time couldn't be in greater conflict with where kind of the energy of the party is. Even the energy within the Biden administration. You had that one Ted Kaufman quote that said, well, when we come into the White House, the cupboards are going to be bare and we're going to have to tighten our belts. And he got slapped down, and the Biden administration said that that's not where they see themselves going. So the idea that you were going to bring in Raimondo, whose other big accomplishment had been pillaging a pension fund, or as treasurer of the state, which earned her the hostility of organized labor. So to not have her was a win for the left, but then to replace her with somebody who is, like you said, a Medicare for All supporter, has supported what are called march-in rights on pharmaceutical companies, which basically, if a pharmaceutical company is gouging the public with a drug that was funded by public money, the federal government can march in, grab that patent, and sell it and license it to generics so that they can compete and lower prices. He pushed the Obama administration. He pushed. And he pushed in the courts to defend and expand the ACA. It's not exactly like a Bernie Sanders, but a fairly progressive attorney general and congressman who was actually kind of on the way to becoming Speaker of the House before he left, deciding that the folks up there were never going to give up their positions.
I was going to say, Ryan, a lot of people don't seem to remember. I mean, he was in the House of Representatives for years. Like, he was very high up, actually, in the Democratic machine. And so much so, as you said, he would have been a chief aide to Nancy Pelosi. What do we know based upon his years in the House and what he advocated for there?
He was considered to be kind of on the left wing of the establishment. Mm-hmm. So sort of like a Robert Reich when he was in the Clinton administration. It's not, he isn't somebody who's tearing the system down, but within at the leadership table, he's the one who's keeping a line of communication open with progressives, and he and also Chris Van Hollen and some others who were rising up in the ranks of the House, but all of them concluded that this triumvirate of Pelosi, Hoyer, and Clyburn, we're leaving the House of Representatives in a box. Like they were creating no plans, for the next generation to take over, and so they have all gone and done other things. Like he went to become Attorney General of California, for instance, and looks like it's worked out for him. And the Congressional Hispanic Caucus had been pushing for representation, in the Biden administration, and so this satisfies that demand as well.
Mm-hmm. And what sort of issues will land on his desk as HHS secretary if he's in fact confirmed for that position? What kind of power will he have there? Obviously, it's a key position in the middle of pandemic at the moment.
I mean, the most important thing is handling the logistics of getting us out of this pandemic. But the power that he has, if anybody wants to try, if any state wants to try single payer, he can give them a waiver to try single payer. But B, HHS has enormous power with regard to pharmaceutical companies that it has historically just chosen not to use. And so, there's rulemaking that the Trump administration had actually pushed forward because, Trump, really wanted to lower drug prices so that he could say that he had delivered for the seniors that made up a lot of his base. So HHS, has the ability to really come after drug companies and reduce pharmaceutical costs. He could also come after hospitals, which have engaged in all sorts of price fixing schemes in league with private equity and companies like McKinsey in order to gouge consumers. So there is a lot that the federal government can do if it wants to. And it's interesting that he was coming at it from the legal side as Attorney General. He was suing the pharmaceutical industry, so he has an understanding of what these companies are up to, what they're capable of, and what the powers of the federal government are.
Yeah. Ryan, I guess put this in the context of the rest of Biden's appointees. Just learned this morning that General Lloyd Austin, very likely to be Biden's new Secretary of Defense. What do you make of this in the context of that?
I mean, in some ways, it's sort of like identity politics is producing an ideological lottery of sorts for Democrats. It's like, all right, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, is demanding that they have representation. Well, Xavier Becerra would satisfy that, and it just so happens that he's a pretty great pick from the perspective of progressives, within the kind of tailored demands that you can expect within the Biden administration. Then you say, all right, well, the Congressional Black Caucus has been pushing extremely hard, not just for black representation in the administration, but also specifically for there to be the first black Pentagon secretary. And so Lloyd Austin gets chosen, and according to a lot of the reporting, first and foremost to meet the demand from those particular allies. The secondary question is, what are his politics and how is he going to run the Pentagon? At first blush, the first thing you notice is that he was on the board of Raytheon. Pretty much anybody who's going to wind up as defense secretary nowadays is going to have gone through some revolving doors. So I've been hearing from some progressives who are like, given all the different possibilities, this might actually work out better than some of the other choices. Now, the other question though is, what about the norm of putting generals on top of the Defense Department? Right. This is not something that is supposed to be done. It violates the spirit and the letter of civilian control of the military. And Jack Reed, who heads the is the ranking member on the Armed Services Committee, when he allowed Trump to stick a general atop the Defense Department, said that he would never allow that again. There will be no further waivers. And so, whether Jack Reed gives Biden a waiver or tries to organize his colleagues to say, no, we insist on civilian control of the Defense Department, is a question that'll be interesting within kind of the military and national security community, but not something that the broader public is probably going to pay a lot of attention to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think all great points. I love the way you put that. Identity politics lottery. Is creating an ideological lottery. So I have a feeling I'm going to be citing that in a lot of segments coming up. Ryan, great to see you as always.
Good to see you, Ryan.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up, the director of People's Action on who many progressives endorse to run the Department of Agriculture. That's when Rising returns.